Sitting Speaker Series. This is part 2 of Max McKeown's talk this afternoon. I don't know how many of you were here this morning or perhaps got to see just bits and pieces of it on ResNet. It was really fascinating work that he is doing and thinking about what kind of perception does Microsoft have in the marketplace with not only our competitors but our customers and our consumers, and how do we as individuals affect that perception, and some of the different ways that we can work together to either understand more clearly what that perception is and perhaps then work together to decide what we need to do, if anything, to change that perception. I'm very excited about this talk. I think you'll have a lot of interesting questions to ask Max, and please help me welcome him.
Thank you. I just need to check who was here this morning, because I said I'd talk about different things. And if no one is here, then I won't bother. Is it one? One. There you go. Well, you must have liked my jokes. I'll tell them again. Right. Who am I? Well, apart from my name, which you already have, I'm interested, let's put it a good way, I'm interested in the link between the way we treat people inside and outside of the organization and how well that organization does. My essential opinion, but I think it's backed up by the evidence. If it's not, I'm just a believer. But I think I can convince as well, is that the world has become too complex and its problems too complex to be dealt with by the way we have acted and interacted with other people. We can't just solve the world's problems with people who sit inside little boxes and fulfill their roles and their responsibilities for themselves and about 6 other people around them. That's insufficient. We need to solve bigger problems than that. It seems to also link in Microsoft terms that in order to take the next few leaps past where you are, you're also going to have to deal with some complex issues. In order to deal with those issues, again, it's a cultural problem, not a technological one, first and foremost. I mean, your brains aren't going to change as such. The way you think could change, and the way you interact with the rest of the world is going to change. So I suppose I thought of this over lunch, and it was really good, so I'll say it. Just laugh and be impressed in a minute, okay? I really would like to take Microsoft from what I'd say is kind of culture 95 to something like culture XP. And that kind of leap, well, that took a few years for you to do. So as a technological company, maybe it will take a few years to do that culturally. But I think in order to deal with the new technological problems you have and marketplace challenges you have, you'll need to. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll just carry on the way you are. And I'm not anti-Microsoft. That's the other thing I'd like to say before I start. Not because I'm scared of any of you. I can do TV Tai Chi and or TV Kung Fu if you are in any doubt. But first, to start with, a few slides to just introduce the style of what I'm going to talk about. First is I'm often struck and have what I describe as Tintin moments. I could have had a Marvel superhero or DC superhero here as well, but it's the moment where you're so struck by the absurdity of something that you have no words, not one. Instead, what you have over the top of your head is just exclamation marks and question marks, and you just can't even believe that you're having to deal with this. This makes no sense. But in general, when you're hit with a Tintin moment, you just have no words. So everything carries on just as it was. You're so aghast. You ever had someone be so rude to you that you've got no words for it? And you just let them get away with it. And the French actually have a phrase for this in particular. I understand your feelings and all, but they're a significant Microsoft market. And and they have a phrase for it, that moment. That second chance. And in this case, I'd like you to all think of that, because I like to leave a group maybe a little bit more ready to challenge things they think are absurd in their workplace. The extreme version is when someone becomes a whistleblower, and I'm not saying that is necessary at all in Microsoft terms. No reason to think you're anything less than 100% honest in all your business dealings, but it sounds like an interview, doesn't it, for a priest. But are you honest in all your dealings? But actually it is. But I just want you to think about those moments and to be prepared to challenge them. Here are some disconnects, though, from the world of sport in thinking that left me with a Tintin face. This is a boxer. He was a middleweight world champion. I like that. No, just keep reading. Let's see. There we go. Now you've laughed. There have been deaths and injuries in boxing, sure, but none of them serious. What I like about this is you can't see me. There you go. It's that person who didn't agree with me on the last session. This is good because it's self-centered and inaccurate. You like that? I mean, for hit. Now we can't see the slides and we can see me. Okay, that's fast failure. There we go. He actually thinks that if he doesn't die, it's not serious. That's where I think that comes from. It's not just mis-saying. It's that serious. This is a striker of a football team in the top division of soccer in the UK, but it applies here. Doesn't it? This disconnect, as it happens, they're now facing relegation to the next, it's Leeds United. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but they're facing relegation. They're going to go down to the next division, probably. And they just did not understand there was a connection there between winning and winning. And so they lost and lost. I don't know. Disconnects. Lots of disconnects in the world. This is an antidote to the cheese book. Yeah, you might have a copy. I don't know if Microsoft were one of the many companies who, it says on the back, bought 5,000 copies and forced them down the throats of their employees in cheese sandwiches or something. But sometimes it doesn't matter where the cheese is. It matters where you are. Maybe you don't want to find the cheese everywhere. I mean, cheese is, I guess, meant to be money in the book, essentially. It pretends it's about fulfillment, but I think it's about money. And in this case, sometimes you're just in the wrong place. I mean, if you looked up, you'd find that you're not happy with the way things are going. Chaos. This is simply that I think that learning and doing things is messy. You can't learn anything worth knowing and be all tidy about it. It's hard to do it. I remember people in school and college who would learn what was on the page, but would gain no new insights. They'd memorize it and have no new insights. I mean, there may be some of the 360,000 people who apply to you. Who knows? They know the answer, but they don't understand how to ask the next question. This is going to be kind of messy. Last session, I always have more slides than we possibly need. There are around 300 slides in here, and obviously I can't finish them, so we might not get to the end, except I'm going to be so neat at the end, you won't know. But in the last session, we didn't even get anywhere close. We stopped because people wanted to talk, and that's all right. If you feel strongly about something, just say it. Learning and doing is messy. When we try to think otherwise, we're just fooling ourselves. It's not going to be neat. Chaotic. Here is just a test for you. Right. If you know this, don't tell anybody. Look at these cards, either one of them. You don't have to look at me. Cards aren't on my forehead. Look at it. Choose a card. Now, look back to me. Remember the card. And transmit wireless ESP to my brain. Version 1. Microsoft product. I'll take your stock options. Okay. Transmit that to my head. You doing that? Don't fake. It won't work. You have to believe. I've got 4 words for you. All right. Wait. You waiting? Your card should be gone. Is it gone? Yeah. That's it, isn't it? That's all I need to do. That's worth having me back. I've got pages and pages of this kind of stuff. No problem at all. They couldn't even give me interactive voting for this session, and I can do this. Yeah. Okay, right. Next one. Sometimes when you look a little deeper, you're surprised at what you find. That's what that's like. The previous slide didn't mean anything at all. This slide might mean something. Sometimes when you look a bit deeper, you find things that you didn't expect to find. Maybe you are someone's puppet. Kermit would be so shocked. I mean, he'd break the law in Texas, wouldn't he? Thank you. Okay. First of all, why people hate Microsoft. Now, I have to have this section. I'm not guessing at you all. I don't think, it's worth saying, I don't think they hate you. I'll come to that later. They don't hate you. They hate Microsoft. That's really important here, and we'll get to why it's so important and what you can do about it. They don't hate you, and I'll ask so why. Why they hate them. First, proof. Obviously, it's not scientific, but it's using Google, which you use too. And there are only 3 companies on here where there are more haters than lovers of Microsoft. And Microsoft's on the list. Microsoft, spot the other 2?
AOL.
Yeah?
IBM.
No, not IBM. No, IBM's slightly ahead, yeah. AOL and Netscape. So you're keeping good company, wouldn't you say? There you go. A browser that doesn't work, and a company that doesn't let you work. And then there's then there's AOL. No, then there's Microsoft. Okay, so that's kind of proof. Kind of. Not tremendously scientific, but if I'd had to look through all those people's papers, you would have pretended it was scientific. So I have millions of them.
Isn't Netscape part of AOL?
That's what someone said earlier. I said there are only 2 companies, and they said there were 3, and obviously I'm right. You pointed out. Yeah, they are part of the same company, but they mention them. They mention them. Okay. These are just different reasons maybe someone would hate you. Not you, the company. This one, it's a case where your terms, one company in particular, published some comparative figures, performance figures for SQL Server and other databases. Somebody at the company prevented them actually publishing those figures. They said the terms and conditions say you can't publish comparative figures, so don't publish them.
Actually, I would just like to point out that Oracle...
Was that you?
Oracle actually started that. They were the first ones to do that.
Okay.
It was in response, I know exactly what it was in response to, because one of the professors that I worked with at Wisconsin, who, at the time that they were doing Wisconsin benchmark, wanted to publish those numbers, it's because of that they don't let you do that.
That you don't. Okay.
So was that the right thing to do?
This wasn't about Oracle.
It wasn't written about Oracle. We're going to point, and it's not, but whenever, it's not personal, but whenever we get a piece of self-justification, feel free, we're going to suggest it such. Now, not from you, but that's what the company says, I've got to say. They say it's not me, it's not my fault, I didn't start it, and it's not fair because everybody else does it. That isn't a good way to deal with the community. They spot that, and they just say, you're the biggest in this area, you're very rich, and you've stopped me publishing. We believe First Amendments are so right that we, bomb people for it, and not a joke, I'm just saying, we believe this is really important, but we can't let you publish. Well, why not? Everyone's going to know anyway, aren't they? And what do you think the web is? The figures are out there somewhere, and he said he wasn't willing to publish them because he was scared of your legal department in the end. So too much control.
Why should we be nice about this?
Okay, that's the next section. First of all, I'm going to pile on the why they do. But I will. The next section's called Why You Should Care. Okay, so stay around. Next, there are some people who have kind of an emotional reaction to the brand or the company. This guy is 26 years old. He is a German systems operator and he works for the town or the municipality in Germany that recently went Linux only. Remember that? You keep track of the Halloween memos. And I'm not anti-Microsoft at all, but one of the reasons is that you've done enough things to irritate them over the years, or to appall them, that it's become deep-seated. I'm not saying he's right, I'm just saying how he feels. Again, I've been there from the start. I actually used Windows 1. Not very many people did the first wave, did they? Another issue. You've got the magnificent Bill Gates in charge of the company, and one of the reasons people hate the company, it seems, is their opinion, true or false, doesn't matter, of Bill Gates. Doesn't matter whether it's true or false. Can you stay with that? Because otherwise you'll criticize the wrong things as part of my talk. I don't mind criticizing the right things, but perception is reality. It's not true, necessarily, but it's real. It's out there. It's what you deal with, isn't it? Yeah. That's why we do advertising and marketing, because we believe perception is reality. Perception in this case is sort of 95% market share. That's all right. So stay with me. And they have an issue with some of the things that Bill Gates stands for. Remember that for later. The arrest section. But here's another strange reason people hate you. This comes from a bulletin board session. And somebody was writing about a kind of conversation and failed to mention that he was using NetMeeting as a tool. And later on, when he was asking for some technical help, and he didn't mention it, and later on some people criticized him for not mentioning it. You know, please can you help me? He doesn't mention what he's using. And later on he says, look, sorry for not mentioning NetMeeting, but Microsoft is a disease. Please understand it's hard for me to say the name. Now, again, not whether he's right or not, but why is it that he thinks, in order to be in with his group, he's got to say that? You've got a group of people who are embarrassed to say that they use a Microsoft product. Again, only a small percentage, so obviously ignore everything I'm saying. This is a spoof statement, but people have already mentioned this to me today, that this actually happened, so we'll read through it. Spoof statement. My friends all think I'm a servant of Satan because I get my paycheck from Microsoft. I want to be able to attend the party and proudly say I work for Microsoft without worrying about being ambushed by a posse of Linux or Mac zealots. I want to be able to attend the family reunion and boast about my Microsoft employment and stock options without everybody asking for my help troubleshooting all these weird Windows problems. Yeah, I mean, I've been there. I say I'm into computers and they, yeah. But right now I have to lie about my job. I can't keep living this deception forever. I want to be able to sleep at night. Why does the public cater so much? I'm sick of ethical dilemmas. Now, I'm interested. This was a spoof, and in the spoof, programmers demanded less pay so that they'd get more respect from their friends. Obviously, you're not going to do that, any of you. Although sometimes a certain percentage leave in order to get less pay, but to get a bit of respect. Yeah, that's possible. You must have had some of you colleagues who've essentially made that decision. If any part of this is true, it's a weight on you. All this hate's weight. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? I'll pretend I made it up before I got here. But a weight, it's just like carrying around a ball and chain. You're dragging it along. You're fighting it rather than doing something useful. So you're having to deal with it, or some of your colleagues are, instead of just being ultra proud. And I know the stats say 90% of Microsofters, or Microsurfers, Microsurfs, isn't it, are proud to work here. But that's not the same as being proud to work here when you're not here. Yeah? Anybody fit in with that? There's a big difference. And we are all proud when we're here because it's such a great place. Okay, this is Steve. I should get one of you to read it out. But Steve Ballmer was at a Silicon Valley meeting a few years ago. I've got all the references, by the way, if anyone thinks I'm making any of this stuff up. And he got more than he expected in the meeting. and he was just meant to be there for a Q&A, and they said, but you guys, with all due respect, are considered evil. Considered evil. I mean, that's what you're about, they said to him. These were serious people, serious players. And then he got it from the interviewer, and then the other journalists, and then the other tech people, all saying this, saying, we don't really dislike you, but you're considered evil. I mean, everybody hates you. Why is that? And you remember that first slide I showed you about hate and love? They made the comment that Intel are respected by other programmers and other tech people, but Microsoft not so as often. Why is that? Does it bother you? And Steve came up with some excuses for it, or some reasons, which I'll come on to later. But this is just the evidence, remember, that some people hate you, even if it's only 5 or 10 of them. These apperception means comparing one thing to another. I did some searching for Microsoft is like, and these are comparisons that have been made. I found 1,500 of them, and I've just written out some of the more interesting. So Microsoft is like McDonald's. You can do that for yourself. Microsoft is like Coke. It's worse for you than water, but we charge for it, and we're all into manufacturing and distribution. Microsoft is like a fly. We want it to drop down dead. That's what the person said. Microsoft is like a Terminator. Keeps on going. Microsoft is like a surfer at the end of a long day. He missed 2 waves, and he's hoping he can catch the next one. That was quite good. Microsoft is like a crack dealer. Microsoft is like, I think, a crocodile. Anyone wants an explanation of any of these? I've got them all. Which one?
Heinz.
Sorry?
The 4 lines from the bottom. Child and then Heinz.
Child. I'm trying to find it. Oh, Heinz, 57 varieties. That's why. They were just saying you've got lots and lots of products to cover every area. So they're right. Heinz is like a Nerf ball. They were talking about your particular culture here, the fact that you've got a Nerf ball culture. It was a positive comparison. Just saying, they're all fun and into interesting games or something. World Trade Center, you stand for everything that is American, and people hate you for that reason or like you. That's one of the justification points, by the way. You'll start to say soon, we're successful, therefore we're right.
Dog with bricks tied to its head. What is that?
Which one?
Dog with bricks tied.
Okay, that's working without windows is like being a dog who no longer has bricks tied to his head. That was it. Ravid Wolf, marriage, lots of relationship ones, abusive girlfriend, abusive husband. Abusive girlfriend is you move in, you sleep with her, you keep going with her because you think deep down she loves you really. Pretty soon you're too old to move to anybody else. Starfish, we got in here that this was about the antitrust stuff. They didn't want you chopped in half because they knew you'd grow into 2. Okay. Gang of Bullies, well, we could go through some of the others, but I think they're informative. You could talk quite a long time about any of these comparisons that have been made and find quite a lot of truth inside there. There's some hate and there's some just insights. Okay, this is Steve's reaction to being asked whether they should cooperate with people. I think you should pay attention to this. So he said there are a number of things we could do. One is, how do we make nicey nice? I agree. One is, they're nothing, screw them. The third option is, there's something. How do we compete aggressively? And I would venture number 3 is a more likely scenario. We compete because we respect. Right. The part I think is most interesting here is the first one. The description he gives to characterize cooperation. Because the question that was asked, just so you know, is, say you had a problem with a competitor's technology. They weren't working together. What would you do? Would you go over and chat to him and try and resolve it, or would you just say, screw him? And he characterized the talking it over as being nicey nice. Now, I'd say that if somebody said nicey nice at this point, they don't necessarily rate cooperation. You don't get all a nicey nice if you mean cooperation. I mean, I learned cooperation from Sesame Street. I know what it means. And can't get no cooperation with something I grew up on. I know that that's not something he gets in this conversation. Maybe he does normally, because I don't know him. I don't know any of you. So I don't know. Maybe he's really into cooperation. But if he gives that kind of reaction to criticism, that's another reason people hate you. Self-justification, self-justification, self-justification. Of course we're right. You guys don't get it. Someone from this morning just kept saying, they're just jealous. That's why they hate us. They're just jealous. It doesn't really wash. I mean, maybe it's true. Here's another one. The teachers are saying, Johnny, you are 3 times bigger than anyone else in this class. Johnny, I'm going to watch you. This is Steve Ballmer, 1995, I think it was, Silicon Valley. A recorded interview that's real. This isn't me pretending. None of it's me pretending, by the way. Now, don't fall over, Johnny, or we'll put you on a diet. I don't know why he said that. but I've seen the dancing video, so I know maybe why. That's the analogy that applies here. Johnny hasn't been a bad kid, at least not my Johnny. That's what I want to ask you. If Johnny's Microsoft, and I'm not asking for hands up or anything, because it's on tape. Obviously, you can't do that. But how many of you are convinced yourself that Johnny, Microsoft, has never been a bad kid? Never been a bad kid. He hasn't been a bad kid. Or not very often. Just interested in what you really think. Because if you really do think that he has been, that will, just at the bottom line issue, it will restrict your productivity and your effort and your ideas. Because if we've got to fight against something, if there's part of it that doesn't make us comfortable, we don't work as well. So I'm going to argue lots about bottom line. I mean, maybe ethics doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter about being good, but if this is a bottom line driven company, if you think it's going to get in the way of bottom line, then it's a good idea to change it. I think Microsoft maybe has been a bad kid on occasion. Another one, reaction that winds up the world. The analogy of Microsoft being the selfish giant. The Oscar Wilde book, he said, "My own garden is my own garden." This is when some children came into the selfish giant's beautiful garden. And he said, "My own garden is my own garden. Anyone can understand that, and I will allow nobody to play in it but myself." That's understandable. I mean, there's nothing wrong with his comment. It was his garden. And there's nothing wrong with the view, in essence, that, you know, Microsoft have achieved all these things and they should just be able to do what they want with their company. Only it just doesn't seem like a very attractive attitude. The giant that chases these children out of his garden just doesn't seem like a guy you'd want to hang out with. Well, what if Microsoft had turned into somehow a company nobody wants to hang with? They're all right, great to work for, sometimes. Not all the time. I mean, I know not everyone's happy, but not great to hang with. What difference does that make? Well, no difference if all you are on the desktop. Almost no difference if you're in control. But as soon as you're dependent on anybody else outside of the company for success, it makes all the difference in the world. Microsoft has not had necessarily the greatest kind of corporate back office career so far. You want to get into the corporate back office, you've got to get through people who know about you, who know about your reputation, who know what you are. You'll need their cooperation, a lot of it. If you're people no one wants to hang with, and you say, "Get out of my garden," you're not popular. But, back to the gentleman's view, why should you care? I mean, it's just all rubbish anyway. They're just malcontents who don't agree with the way you do things, and they resent your success. Okay. This is one of the few pieces of the presentation that's based just on a rumour, but I've got an equally strong quote later on, which we might not get to, that is verifiable. This was a rumour that Bill Gates had said this last year. Big companies are not super innovative. I know he said this because people have quoted him to me even today, similar things. They're not super innovative and don't produce reliable products. Do you really need the next version of Office? I don't think so. The only thing that sells software these days is the innovation factor. On another occasion, he said, of course, famously, that each version of software that comes out not to cure bugs, it comes out to get people to buy the next version. Well, that's sensible, that's really smart. Lots of other competitors didn't understand that. But if he's right that you need to become more innovative than even you've been to date, where does the innovation come from? And how could people hating you make a difference? Let me try to connect some ideas. Okay, we'll ask just the group. Every decade there's a handful of people who make a huge difference in computing. Handful of famous names that make a difference in computing. So I'm going to ask you for your opinions. Let's just try and get to a list of 3 to start with. Someone say, in your opinion, a person who's made a big difference in changing the face of computing. Who?
Andy Grove.
Andy Grove. Okay, another one? Past decade or so?
Berners-Lee.
Berners-Lee, that came up this morning. Tim Berners-Lee. Okay, next one?
Linus Torvalds.
Linus Torvalds. So, okay, well, one different Andy Grove, but 2 out of the 3 exactly the same as this morning. We'll go to 5. Next?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs next.
How about a really out there one? Sean Fanning.
Sean Fanning. So out there that it came up this morning. It's the second person. No, that's not a criticism. That's my point, that he might not be viewed as the greatest programmer, but 2 people noted him straight away. Okay. Do you think any of... Well, Andy Grove's slightly different, actually. He might be an exception. Let's take the other 4, because they're all software guys. Is that fair? Probably. Do you think any of the 4 are likely, at any point, to work for Microsoft full-time? Anybody think so? No. No? Just checking. Put up your hand. Be brave. No, probably not. Probably not likely to. Some of them not even likely to have been offered a job in the first place. 360,000 resumes come to Microsoft every year or so. That doesn't necessarily guarantee you've got the next wave of thinkers in the company. It just ensures you've got a lot of very smart people. I went to high school and then to college and bought into the idea, like some of you, that I wanted a career. That career would have involved no problem working for Microsoft. Anybody that was willing to offer me money and stock options was going to get my vote. I bought into that career path. Some of these guys don't. What if they're the same people you need for the next wave? What if, I know you're smart, I'm smart, but what if the people that will make the difference don't work for Microsoft and will never work for them because they don't like what you stand for?
We just take their ideas.
Okay. Okay. It's a very, very... I'm glad it's on the web. Because one day the next antitrust sort of scheme will have you up there and kill you. Excellent. Yeah, take their ideas. The problem is you're playing catch-up all the time, aren't you? Always playing catch-up. And back to the surfer, how much luckier can you be? And why bother? When actually you could change the reputation to be such that people wouldn't mind working with you. And I would contend that people's dislike and mistrust and hatred even, deep-seated, he said it, not me, of what the Microsoft brand has become to stand for is getting in the way of you and your business. Because you, as people, are fine. But they don't know you. Why would they know you? I don't know. I know the person who created Netscape. Let's just check. But all of you do. Netscape creator, you know that name. I could go through each one of you. Who was the innovator in charge of Office? How many of you know that answer? 1. That was good. Maybe some of you do, but does the world know? No. And one of the things that we could do is get we're going into the third part of my talk, but one of the things we could do is get who you are out there, because they don't dislike you. They'd like you if they met you. Most of you, obviously not him. I wasn't pointing anywhere. It was right the way through. But obviously some of you are dislikable, but the rest of you are great. You're just the same guys as outside of the company, but they don't know who you are. This hate's going to get in the way. That's why you should care. Like walking around with a ball and chain. No, we'll just go past there. Okay, just the same point. Sean Fanning. They've hired some great good programmers, engineers and designers, but they don't have a monopoly, and you never will. Another reason that you should care is that the hatred, I mean, it may be strong, but some people seem to think it. They hate the concept of Microsoft, even if they don't really hate you, because they don't know you. But it's prepared a pool of people who are ready to cooperate with each other against you for no money. Scary. People who are willing to work really hard. I had a software developer on one of my teams once. All he did was do Linux. Didn't do my software development. Risked his job for it. Just kept going. These people, this is Mark Anderson, and he's this quote came from a party he held a while back, where he said, where what he did was share his code with the world. Now, okay, Mozilla, yeah, hasn't come up with a great browser, but the point was that he was willing to share 2 million lines of code with the world just so that he could try to compete back. And many of your competitors are now embracing open source, and this isn't an open source rant today at all, but the reason they're embracing it, twofold. One, they don't like you, so they're willing to risk it, and two, they lost. IBM, OS2, they lost.
There's another reason also.
Please.
Which is that, frankly, in the space where IBM is really pushing open source development, particularly Linux, this is an area where they make very high margins selling hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Their interest is selling hardware. They have no interest in making a lot of money off the software. They will sell and consulting. That's right. They want to make money off of charging a lot.
It's the easiest thing in the world if you go into one of those corporates they're selling those to and say, hey, would you like a Linux backend? Is that what OS you'd like? The tech guy often will say, it's a ready-made community that says, yeah, I'd love to. Any way I can get Microsoft off? Yeah, I'll do that. They've got a ready-made community, it appears, who want you off. That's all I'm saying. Not for technical reasons, it's something else.
I just have to say just that. In spending a lot of time in academia, IBM has realized the value of embracing the community model. I mean, Linux and Eclipse are examples, but fundamentally what they've embraced is the community model. Corollary advantage of commoditizing a lot of what we put value on as Microsoft products.
The awful thing with doing that is the lights come on so we can see who did it.
Community that they really tapped into.
And what they want. And there's this idea, probably on one of the next slides, but of contributing to that community and not just taking from it. Another reason you should care, I've got to skip over some of these things, but another reason you should care is, of course, that we know that the productivity ratio for the great programmer compared to the good programmer can be as high as 20 to 1. What happens if the guys that are good at thinking in this abstract way, maybe you're all the great ones, what happens if some of the truly great ones, again, don't want to work for you? What's the hit on productivity? What if there's a link between there seems to be a link between great coders, ability to abstract, like of martial arts, like of foreign languages, music, and so on. But what if one of their characteristics is also a higher than normal concern for community and ethics, not to be viewed as the bad guy? What if that's true? I think there is a link, as it happens, and if there is a link, you're paying a price for it, as long as there's any kind of reputation, even if it's undeserved. Forget whether it's deserved. That would be pointless, wouldn't it? That would be arguing with something you can't change. Do we deserve it? Oh, no. Okay. It's a novel idea from one of the people out there. Didn't use it this morning, but some guy that's predicting that Linux becomes the Windows kernel with a GUI on top developed by you. There are people out here, of course, doing it anyway, aren't they? And we've already mentioned the commodity word, and we haven't got all the way through the presentation. Already mentioned that idea, commoditization of operating systems and Office. Open Office and Windows. Someone's going to make it work. It's taken 10 years for you to get a stable operating system, and it's taken about 10 years for them to nearly get there. Maybe it'll take them another 5. It doesn't really matter, but somebody's going to get there someday, and the someday isn't very far out. Okay, let's just shift. Right, another reason you should care is the work that you need to do, that, well, competitors of yours are relying on their relationship with good developers, people that can't work for you. They have to work outside because they work for the client. They work building applications you don't build. They're relying on their relationship, good relationship, to get them to do their innovation for them, or a part of it. So Macromedia's new central concept is seeking to get outside of the browser, which you control 96% of the time, at least, outside of that to the desktop, to have end-to-end web services. Does that sound like anybody else's strategy? Maybe it does. It sounds a bit like .NET or whatever .NET is. It sounds like that. This isn't a cheap jibe. I just mean it sounds like it. And if you can throw it out to really, really motivated developers who you trust to make a difference, they will. They will. So one of the reasons is developers are on side with other people because they're not on side with you. This comment, this comes from someone who's already been mentioned today, Tim Berners-Lee. He's asked constantly, particularly by the American press, doesn't he feel bad that he didn't make any money from the web? And he says this: what is maddening is the terrible notion that a person's worth should be judged on how much money they've made. Isn't that terrible? And as long as there's a group of people thinking like that, again, you lose out. What would be so wrong in Microsoft becoming a company that was renowned for other things other than how much money it's made? I mean, other companies have made more money anyway. That's just to prove I was there. Here we go, Windows 1. Okay, how far you've come. Right. That wasn't ironic. I was serious. You have come a long way. Right, another problem is that once people work for you, they seem to, most of the time, quite like you. At least if you got the right badge. Then, you know, that's an old one. Oh. I bet no one else has actually said it up here. Once you get here, it's good, but again, it's blocking people coming in to discover how great you are. It's blocking. Okay.
You know, oftentimes when people leave, they end up being quite bitter. And I'd say easily a majority, maybe 75, 80%. Most people who leave would never consider working here again. There are some people who come back. There are counterexamples, to be sure.
Does anybody know how many come back? Somebody might. You came back.
Working here
I don't know what I can say next. Are you bitter?
It's
Did you do counselling or what? You went through, yeah.
I came back under certain a more clear-headed about what parameters of my engagement are going to be. But it's a cycle that I have to agree.
Okay. Hard to do heart and mind once you've left. I'd say it kind of demands this, what's this phrase, drunk the Kool-Aid, isn't it? It kind of demands that of you, but I think increasingly you'll find people, you're only 25 years old, you're just a young company in the world terms, and you may find that new people coming to it are less and less convinced by the past. They're less, who knows? You're older than 25, aren't you?
You seem to presume that this Hatred Microsoft.
Speak up.
Sorry, they can't hear you, I can.
Can you repeat the question?
You seem to presume that the hatred of Microsoft is rational, which is not necessarily true. So I think it is on a level of hatred, historical hatred, history, which is very difficult to change. Never mind what Microsoft does. Other reasons, for example, before this current war, the French hated America, they're just big. They want to be the biggest, and here is America.
Somewhat curiously, everybody who sits in that seat has the same viewpoint, but that's all right. Come closer, you'll agree with me.
I point out that the French also helped this country achieve its independence
Okay,
years ago.
well, let's not go there because just because I'm English doesn't mean I have to speak for the whole of the rest of the world. But one thing on that.
You don't say anything against the French. And of course they are.
Yeah. Okay, but
The biggest boy
I
on the block.
hope it hasn't come across that I've said it's all rational. I believe it's all rational, but I don't believe that it's possible to just decide that because it's not rational, you're going to ignore it. I think that that's just foolish. I also think that there are some good rational reasons for disliking this company, just as there are some good rational reasons for loving this company. There just are. And you've got to ask yourself, why of all these tech companies are you, I mean, do you love AOL? I bet you don't. And you'd say you had some good rational reasons for disliking them. And they'd say internally that you don't, it's all emotional. But even if it is irrational, even if it is emotional, why can't we come at them with a irrational, in a sense, emotional, relation-based solution to the problem? Because obviously hitting them with the rational terms and conditions doesn't work. Just saying you're great doesn't work. Coming up with benchmark studies doesn't work. Total cost of ownership doesn't seem to work anymore. You know, one, because you lose, but apart from that. But even if you didn't, because you'll say, no, we don't, total cost, we've got 5,000 people working in service support or something. But the argument doesn't seem to work because you've got to come at it from an emotional point of view. When you're having sort of relationship breakdown with your partner, male or female, you can't, well, I've tried, you can't just go down like a list of all the good things you do and say, well, surely you must be happy. The only reason you want divorce is because you're irrational. Yeah, you know, divorce comes. I don't think that's going to work for you at all. Okay, now back from here, because this is an important point for the rest. This comes from the Dave Stutz open letter. Some of you will know who he is, some of you won't. Somebody said to me today that they didn't care what Microsoft did one way or the other. It's too complicated. They just wanted to do their job. But some of you will know. Ex-Microsoft, apparently quite a good guy, I mean, I don't know. But he said that recovering from the external perceptions of Microsoft as paranoid, untrustworthy, greedy, petty, and politically inept will take years. He only said external perceptions. He didn't say you were. Will take years. And then next he makes this point that in certain areas, operating systems, I'd say, and Office, you're going into a lowest cost commodity area, or you will go there one day. When it isn't low cost at the moment, I can tell you. I keep pretending I'm a student so that I can get Office at a decent price. But somebody just sucked through their teeth. It's all decent. But if you get into this, then that part of the company that deals with that will just be about creative management of process, motivation of individuals, and accounting. Because it's a manufacturer of a commodity, and that's what organizations do. What you want to get to is, and there's lots of text on this, you don't have to read it all, but on the bottom here, these two last paragraphs, he suggests that what you should do is work your way into the multi-device area. Because he's saying that useful software written for more than one device will always command high margins because it's so complicated, so complex. It's not just like writing Office. It's difficult. It has to be done over and over again. And that you should stop looking over your shoulder at what competitors are doing in a sense, and at the past, and at where you got your money from in the past, and start doing something innovative. And he just gives a big list up there of possibilities. And I'm sure you've got them all covered sort of in your mind, logically. But I would say that if we talk emotional and we talk hate and we talk about cooperation and community, in order to achieve the kind of innovations he talks about at the top, this multi-device stuff, you will be dependent on more than yourselves and Intel. Now, you've always been dependent on more, but you could kind of do a deal between you and the people who did the boxes. As long as they were there and you were there, you didn't have to worry about anybody else. But when you deal with multi-device, you have to deal with the world. What you don't want is people along that highway saying, hey, it's Microsoft coming along. Maybe we should throw some tax down. Or maybe we should divert them. Or maybe we just shouldn't bother letting them through today. You want people cooperating with you. And you're going to be dependent on a lot of people. Now, Nokia and Ericsson are not going to go a long way away very soon. They're going to be there in handset for a long time. So are many of the other incumbents. They're just as successful as you are in the areas they've chosen to focus. But you are dependent on them for growth. And anybody really think high growth is going to come from the sectors you've been biggest in? I don't think so, and nobody else seems to. Well, actually, there's always two. Two people did this morning. They said, well, it could happen. Yeah, maybe it could. China's GDP growth might be real and not fake, and they might suddenly take off and buy your PCs. I think it's more likely they all adopt Windows or something like that, because it's free, and or they just copy yours for free. That's not anti-Chinese, but it is reality of China. During the age of castles in Europe, I'll now speak for all of European history, but not for Europe, there came a phase where people would build castles. I don't think there are any castles in the USA, are there? Just South America, no castles. So for 500 years they built castles, bigger and bigger and bigger castles. And those castles provided protection because none of the current strategy for warfare or current technology for warfare allowed you to break that castle down easily. So if you built a big enough castle, nobody could get you. So the strategy was something like rule over the area as far as you can ride in a day, and then when any bad people come, run back into the castle. And then you just stay there and you wait them out, and then they go away, and you start again. But after 500 years, two things changed. They developed cannons that could quite easily destroy a castle, and they also developed strategies that said, just go past them, or bring your food with you. So you've got more food than they have, and you can wait them out. As soon as the castle had been bypassed completely, people stopped building castles. Pointless protecting a thing that you can't protect. It's pointless building a thing you can't protect. If you liken maybe the desktop to the castle, you find that it's pointless defending it in the normal ways. I mean, keep going as long as you're making money from it. That's fine. But pointless thinking it will last forever. The age of the castles came to an end. Rich people, successful people, eventually it stopped. And 25 years is not enough to prove that Microsoft is immune to change. That's what's going on there. The age of castles will stop, and so will the age of single device prosperity. Okay. Let's go. We'll move past some. Oh, there we go. Shock some of you who've never seen a naked man before. No, we didn't. Like that. So, customers out there. Another reason you should care. Relationships with customers and with partners, who my thesis says, what I'm saying to you is that I think you need them more than you've ever needed them. You can't just slap them around. Not that you have, but you couldn't even if you wanted to. Relationships cannot be bought, traded, or owned. They can only be built between two groups who want to move beyond transactions. They've got to want to. They can't be forced forever. They've got to want to. What if the 16-year-old that grows up thinking that it's uncool to like Microsoft becomes a CEO? You think he's going to approve the Windows build? No. That's going to happen increasingly, that kind of pattern, again and again, unless, of course, Windows and Microsoft is just as likable as the next thing. Please.
Your tone of voice makes it sound like that you think that we're all going to be shocked by this. So I'm actually kind of curious as to how many people in your research and your experience of just talking to groups at Microsoft actually are shocked by this information versus how many people are sort of more like that quote that you put up, the fake quote about being a servant of Satan and so on.
Okay, I don't think that the Microsoft people in here on the whole are going to be shocked at this because you came. First of all, you received an email that said I was going to talk about it and you turned up. More of you turned up than we were planning on. Quite a lot more turned up than we were planning on. So you're not shocked. What I'm interested in is what you're going to do about it. And it's back to the Tintin moment. If we can conclude that most of the people in here believe this thing, believe what I'm saying is more or less accurate, something's a problem, then are you going to get together and change it? Or actually you're just going to work till you leave Microsoft and that's it? That would seem a great pity.
But this is not a majority of the people at Microsoft.
Well, we couldn't fit them in. We had to turn them away. We only got 54,000 applications to work in here. Okay, I don't know, but all I'm saying is you can start something. Microsoft, the company, started smaller than this. I'm just saying that maybe you could move your culture somewhere else, and we're going to go through some of those.
What do you think of the company values initiative as a way to shift business attitudes and possibly external
In
perspectives.
this company or generally?
Well, in this company, but
Okay.
I'm aware of this effort.
Well, in general, if you want to give me anything specific about here that I don't know about, but deciding what your values are and pushing things through it?
Yeah, from the
They were decided to come on. Take a look on the website.
Okay, I have taken a lot on the website. I'm just seeing if I've got it up here. Let me just see.
It's actually 2 links from the homepage.
Okay,
Steve,
okay, here we go.
Steve Palmer is
I do have it, but this is what I'd have to say, generally. When a company develops an ethical code for the wrong reasons, i.e. simply to boost sales or avoid lawsuits, then standards can actually drop. That's what I'd really say overall. So if you want to do something really different, and this is where we've got to, we've already got to the third part.
That's quotation from where?
This is just an article. What I have later on, but I won't bother sharing with you now, is a copy of what your ethical statement was a few years ago, what it is now, and maybe what it could be. I'm saying you're the ethics of your company. If you want to stop people disliking you, if that matters to you at all, I think you have to grab hold of your own ethics and your own policy and actually start forcing that, if you like, back up the business. Because we know anyway, somebody was going to say something.
I don't want to derail you, and I know you're talking
It's
about
all right.
going forward and action and so forth. But before you leave the sort of retrospective view of how people perceive Microsoft based on past actions and how that affects, our ethical climate and possible future directions. What is the role you see of contrition and that explicit contrition with regard to it? I mean, Microsoft has been found guilty of things in court of law. Changes have been made, but
Nobody ever said. Well, there was one email that said sorry, wasn't there? One about the bugs. That was it.
But in the context of perception, how important a role do you think explicit contrition plays, and what do you, without needing things, what do you think are commensurate demonstrations of the sincerity of that contrition?
Okay. Well, in this set, I'm going to answer the question through this. In that, can the world love Microsoft is essentially the issue, and how would they start to love it? Can it change, or do you have to live with it? The first thing, maybe I'll ask the question. You can use your hands to answer. They have to be actually raised rather than just wiggled. But how many of you are willing to say that Microsoft should say sorry in some way? Okay, I don't know what that is. Maybe 20%? I mean, maybe a bit more, but okay, 20%.
Can you be more specific? Sorry about that.
Did you just come in?
Well, I've been here.
Sorry, no, definitely.
Sounds insincere unless it's not about something very specific.
Okay, well, first of all, those ones, the things that you have been found guilty of, that everybody knows that you were a bad kid and you know too. Why not say sorry for that? That would be a good start. You could try that. The next thing is who says sorry, and this is important. If the two people at the top of your company essentially say sorry, nobody believes them anyway. It's like that 6th point on the British UN resolution that Saddam Hussein should stand up on camera and say sorry. We weren't going to believe him anyway, were we? No. So what was the point of him doing it? That's not going to work. And so maybe I could just take this on saying sorry or changing perception, assuming you want to, because there's at least 5% in here who don't want to. They only came because they were kind of mad at me for saying that people hated them. So apart from you, some things you could do to say sorry, a variety. Bill Gates, the man, is associated with altruism, or at least is associating himself with charitable giving. Microsoft, the company, is not associated with charitable giving. So all we've got is one really mega rich person giving away a lot of his, but a small percentage of his huge fortune. That doesn't change perceptions of your company. It might get you access to countries like India, 100 million for AIDS, but it's not quite enough. What if Microsoft was to start giving back to its community and its world in a way that couldn't be viewed cynically by the majority of people? Now, obviously, there'll be a percentage who never likes you, but that's fine. We can cope with that tiny percent. But for the rest, what could Microsoft do? So I'll ask you, what do you think Microsoft... No, you can't answer any more questions. Sorry, terms and conditions. There's quite enough. Send, don't send. No, I'm not going to for the moment. Somebody else. But what do you think we could do, Microsoft could do? I know you have a little bit of time that you can devote to things as a company. But what could you do? What problem that the world has could Microsoft try and solve? When you're a company that's got more profits and cash reserves than some countries make. Is that anybody? What's a world problem that you want to solve? Please.
For this, I will just base that on Africa and India, but there is a big problem with education and hunger. And I just will take the example of Africa. In Africa, you have people dying of hunger because of all the political war. But if you summarize, the root of the problem is the education. So if we were going to educate the people and provide some ways to educate the people, that would be good. The problem with that is what I've heard is anytime Microsoft is going over there and for example, giving software away is like, oh, Microsoft is trying to get its products in Africa. Before even they think that it might actually help.
Mm-hmm. So. How about you do it and there's no PR release? That would help.
Or do it modify Macs if they want.
If you do it with no PR release, that helps. Do you think, obviously people are going to distrust you to start with? Of course they are. Why? Well, we don't have time for that. But I agree. If you wanted to do it for the real sake, you wouldn't worry if they misjudged you. Sorry, it's not my fault.
No, not you.
Yes.
All right, you couldn't hear the question. Sorry. Right, I asked the question. You heard that, didn't you?
Yep.
But not the. It was talking about education and hunger in Africa. Talking about things that the company could do to solve it. I mean, you've got the amount of cash reserves that could just contribute directly, but that's not personal. And if you do that, it will be viewed as a tax write-off or something. What about Microsoft trying to solve that problem? Why not? There are so many things you could do. You could start supporting certain old OSs in those countries so that we know this is an ongoing problem, that OSs aren't supported properly because they're old and the drivers aren't supported properly. So even when they're shipped over there, they've got more of a problem than they did before they started. I mean, you could adopt a country. You've got so much money. You could buy a country. And I'm not just being funny about it, in that you could make an immense amount of difference and don't say a word to anybody about it.
So I'm confused, though. So you do that. Is your hypothesis then that would benefit us so much that we would be able to be prosperous as a company by virtue of having done that?
I'm saying that a way of yes, essentially, that it would ultimately, but not initially. It's not just what you want to do sometimes is win too quickly. You want to say, right, how do we get some PR for this? Let's do it. How do we get some tax write-off? Let's do it.
End user PR problem, but I think what you were talking about earlier is a competitive problem in industry, cross-industry problem, whether it's in wireless or another related industries where we can make headways. So I understand that the human PR would be really great and maybe filter, but that wouldn't directly address the issues we have with competition, in co-opetition, and partnerships, and so forth.
Okay, I heard the question, or the view.
I just would like to get a sense. I'm not sure how aware and how familiar you are with the existing sort of employee charitable contributions that people make. I mean, in this area, we're one of the biggest donors and charitable contributors as individuals. The same thing applies in a lot of other geographies. Now, the issue I'm just trying to understand what you're driving towards is, you made some comment that we should actually just be doing that and not looking for any PR or publicity. Now, the issue to a certain extent is that people in this company around the world in many areas are doing things in Africa there was a thing in one of our internal publications about somebody who went on vacation to Jamaica and contributes a lot to some of the schools there. We have corporate programs in Africa setting up digital villages and all of these type of things. The issue is that in many instances, we're not doing those things for a PR perspective, and maybe we should be. But I'm just trying to get a sense of what you're saying, because to a certain extent, there's what people are doing today and not doing it necessarily for a publicity and PR perspective.
One is I was asked a question about how you could be contrite. How could you pay back as a company? And one of those was to do what you're doing, but an awful lot more if you want to make a difference. Just on that one sphere, that there are some other billionaires out there, apart from those who work here, and they have criticised the company for not giving early enough, for being too cautious in their giving, and they're doing more. And you could do more. So just on that one sliver, you could go way beyond. You could be as dramatic in that area as you want to be in OS's. You could make the company one of the most loved companies by doing more. That was just the starter. And we talked this morning about working with we'll go to some of the other slides. But we talked about disabilities, for instance. This is another area where you could work your way towards being loved. This was a comment from one of your employees. I worried about my employment prospects until I became disabled. Now Microsoft has done a flawless job of ignoring my disability while supporting me in areas I need support in. Well, you have done a lot of good work in it, and you've been highly praised. Why not go a lot further? Everybody in here knows somebody with a disability. You know somebody who is partially blind, partially deaf, has mobility problems. Why not work so hard at solving some of those problems that you create ultimately maybe whole product ranges, but you don't even worry about that in the short term? Why not? Now, what, some more, and you become the whole of the USA works for here. Okay, that could happen, but how about go to them and talk to them about it and how you can actually achieve something? I mean, we ask a difficult question. Either we say we can't change this perception, so it's just the way it is, or we try and find a solution. What I'm trying to do is find a solution. So there must be a way of helping people without smashing your competitors. I think we could figure one out.
Question.
Sorry, go.
I could see where someone could make an argument against what you're saying, in that it could be viewed as a contradiction that a company is so benevolent, because then it's not a capitalist corporation anymore. So do you have any examples of companies that you would single out as either already being these sort of nice people, or as a company, or that have managed to change their perception of the world? Actually.
Okay, did you hear that?
Yeah, it's a related question. Do you have slides for those? Why do we like this company?
For how you should, for people?
No. Do you have slides for why people love that particular company?
For other companies, you mean?
I'd like to know
why they love them. I mean, Sony are loved just because they build really cool things.
In fact, that's true for every company that is loved.
On that list. That's why they're loved. But you're not yet perceived by enough people as producing cool things. You're viewed by too many people as ripping off things. I think someone here mentioned the competitive approach.
That's good.
Now, you can't really be loved by ripping off people's ideas. It's not going to come. But to answer the sort of question about companies who've tried it, one of them was, I won't bother going through the slides, but one of them was a bank in the UK called the Cooperative Bank, who was having problems with its internal people who didn't want to work in the call centre. These aren't sort of highly paid developers or anything. They're poorly paid call centre service staff who weren't enjoying their jobs. And the management just wanted to sort of crack down on the people. The people then rebelled. They had all sorts of fights, poor service, customers were unhappy. And they determined to change their strategy. And they identified 7 groups that they would serve from then on. And they identified, see if I can remember them without the slide. We've got customers, well, everyone pretends to do that. We've got employees, we say that as well. Then shareholders, we all do that. But then they included suppliers to serve the suppliers. There's a stunning idea. They also said that they would serve the employees and their families. They would serve them. I mean, they do anyway because they pay salaries, which provides, but they would seek to. And also that they would support past and future generations. I can just tell you that the impact of that's to support the legacy of past generations in the company and future generations in what they invested in, what they did. The difference was huge. They now have, I think it's 93% who would recommend someone work in a call centre with them, which is immense. And 97% of their customers will recommend that other people use their bank. And that can be completely pinned back to this decision to stand for more than being a bank. And banks are hated typically in our country anyway. I think they're hated here too. And they made an internet bank profitable, which is more than almost everybody else in the world has done.
Your slides earlier on seemed to portray the image, which I think fit my own expectation, that a lot of the reason that people hate us is because their perception is that they pay us a lot of money for products with endless numbers of impenetrable features that don't work. And if that's, again, using your view that perception is reality, I'm not sure how you really go after that problem by saying, oh, well, we're going to, build schools in Africa or something like that.
Okay, first of all, although we got bogged down in it, those are only two of the slides, but that's a good start. Here are some more of them. One is the 3 Degrees project is maybe indicative of this. Here is a product that suddenly, and I've heard people talk about horror stories to get this thing off the ground, a product that actually seems to be new to you. I mean, it's shocking, really. We didn't steal it. We didn't buy it from anyone else. We allowed some people to develop it, though, the way other people developed it. In a house, off campus, get to know each other, develop this product. This one's being praised. You don't have to push this story. People like this product already. But we still don't, because it's Microsoft, we don't know who they are. How many of you know who is responsible for this project? Some of you know. Yeah. Laura? I mean, I had Tammy Morrison this morning.
Laura.
Tammy, Laura, Tammy.
We're here.
Okay. And what I said this morning, though, was that if you want to change perceptions, if you want to change perceptions, though, of, say, the company, how about de-emphasizing Microsoft, de-emphasizing Gates and Ballmer, and emphasizing the people who do the job? Because you're not disliked. Nobody knows who you are. So how would they? You're just as nice as anybody else is. And I think the work that I heard over lunch with the development teams, where they're cooperating far more with suppliers and partners who are building drivers, instead of just criticizing them or anything, they actually find the fault on whatever that thing's called, I can't remember, Watson, and then actually sometimes send drivers back to them that are fixed. I mean, that's a terrific thing to do. But in this case, why not Tammy Morrison becomes, it doesn't matter, just choose at random. For every one of your 350 programming teams, who will be the hero, the public face of that team to the world? Because the world will not hate Tammy Morrison, because it doesn't know who she is. And if they hear 3 Degrees is a new product and Tammy Morrison is the amazing heroine who brought it, she'll get as famous as Sean. Why not? There's nothing to hate. Microsoft, in a sense, is part of the problem, so de-emphasize Microsoft and emphasize other things. Why not? You work for Microsoft. You're not Microsoft, are you? You don't have little sort of dark angel tattoos on the back and serial numbers. So that's one of the ways, and that's nothing to do with giving to poor people in Africa or anything. That's just emphasizing who you are. Okay. Another one is, this is obviously a picture of the Xbox. Somebody ran a hacking contest for the Xbox to crack it. I think next time this happens, it should be you. You should pay the money to crack the Xbox. Why not? Does anybody think that's a bad idea? But to my knowledge, have you ever done it, actually? Maybe you've done it lots. You're standing up.
When they released Windows 2000, they put the server out there and asked people to crack it. That's one of the things they did. I don't know about Xbox, but that's one of the things they did for Windows.
That's an excellent idea. Was there a reward? I'm just saying, why not? There's 2 things on here. One, that just seems so cool that you'd be loved more for doing it. So do that, and with a big bounty. Why not? You can afford it. Secondly, not because your money's limited. Second thing is that in this case, they have started developing software for the Xbox that is kind of neat. It's fun software. It's actually the kind of software that runs every kind of media you can imagine. Have they finished it yet? No, because they don't have that kind of resources. But they've got close. why not support those efforts?
I wanted to think about this problem with you a little bit here. The issues is that an Xbox costs more to make than it sells for.
Okay, yeah, we know that. That's why you're making them smaller, aren't you?
And that part of the business model for them is that you need to sell a certain number of games to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
The game manufacturers actually prefer to pay Microsoft a royalty on the games they write. They don't want to be involved in that because they think we're not serious if we don't ask for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that model is kind of embedded in the game world. Given those two things and the fact that when somebody cracks the box, they can copy games, they can do all sorts of things, or buy the box as a DVD player and a computer, and we lose $100 on each one. How do you work through that? Do you have any ideas?
First of all, I'd say they're going to try and crack it anyway. There's the first fact.
Yep.
They're just going to. So trying to find a way of channeling it positively seems better than not. Second, if you did it on Windows 2000 server, then you could again, if that was the product you mentioned. Secondly, that if you're losing money on it anyway, and you are, and isn't the only strategy to get to number one and then you'll start making more money? Does someone want to clarify that? I mean, that seems to be the only strategy I've read, is if you get bigger than Sony, you start to make significant money.
No, I mean, the strategy is to sell enough games and add-ons per box in order to pay.
But historically, only number one and number two have made any money, and number one makes way more money than everybody else. So I think somebody there would understand that.
I think it's the only strategy we know, actually.
To get to number one and push it up. I'm just saying that if you've got something where you're subsidizing it to this level, we could have some more creativity about how we do achieve it to bring them back in. This product could be the thing that out-Sony's Sony. Because using the PlayStation as a multimedia center is not that fun. Anyway, I can't tackle every issue. Okay. Just have to shift through stuff. Right. Since we're right on our last minute of the event, I won't go on for more than 5. This myth that we've identified, that they are the enemy, that is prevalent in many companies, may be more prevalent here than most, in that because you're so great but so disliked, the only emotional response to that is that it's their fault. And if it's their fault, you're never going to find a way of cooperating with them, even though you need collaborative tools. Can anyone think, in their opinion, of something that could be done here? Is this an internal culture as well? I don't know. Is there a them and us culture in the company, apart from the cards? You can identify groups readily.
Versus everybody else.
Okay.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
Managers versus everybody else.
Okay. Now, this has worked and served you fairly well, it would appear. I mean, that's the argument. Is this true? Just checking. You're identifying your own groups. One group is that anyone tech is good and anyone who's not tech is bad straight away. It's their fault we do bad things. It's the 22,000 salespeople that are unethical. We're perfectly ethical. I mean, that's the kind of argument. Oh, they bring in the money. Whoops. If we could get beyond that to a view that there is only us, then we could change it. How do we get beyond that view? How could you, if you agree, how could you get beyond this very, very, I mean, it's like there's one shark that gives birth, and it only ever gives birth to one live shark, which actually produces 20, and they fight it out in the womb. And there's only one left, and he gets a shipping award. How is it that we could counter this view of them and us in the organization first? Because I think this kind of collaborative stuff means you can't think in terms of so many products shipping, so many not. More of them have got to ship because we need more software out there, and more of them have to do an individual modular job. And I don't know if modular was a word attached to 2003 server because you're late with some components, but in the future it's going to be more necessary. How do you break that down? Anyone got a view?
You make a review structure and a reward structure that values collaboration
and group accomplishment, it's not just based on individual.
Okay, that's a good first one. Someone else?
Or more specifically about values your individual contributions to the team.
Okay, another one?
Team effort.
You never thought of anything you'd like to change about this company that would help you work together with another?
Actually, hire people based on how well they communicate with other people rather than their technical skills.
Okay, that's another good one. How about letting more of the 350 or so, I don't know if that equals products, I don't know enough, but letting more of the product ship and letting people share more of the money that comes for them directly. It's an interesting notion, because then it isn't just the failures and everybody else. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Then your idea would be tested in the marketplace. Just carry on thinking. I've got more ideas on that, but I want you to think instead. We've got 3 minutes. Is Microsoft a secretive culture or not? Internally? Yes, no? Someone wants to say? It's no. That's really funny when you get that. No, yes. Okay, so obviously it depends where you sit and in which team and who you are. Is Microsoft secretive with the outside world?
Yes.
Okay, nobody said no that time. This myth says that only the goal unifies. People only unify behind what they know and understand. If you keep it secret, they mistrust it automatically. And if we assume that people mistrust Microsoft more than most to start with, even though you don't deserve it, then you're going to have to share an awful lot more information with the world. I mean, a lot more. And are you sure that it would damage you if you did? I'm just not sure. I mean, anybody who wants anything seems to be able to get it anyway. I mean, they just wait for a patch not to be applied and they'll sneak on in. Just only the goal unifies.
But it's not only Microsoft that does that, it's like part of the interest, they can't reveal their plans.
This is part of the thing that I'm saying, that if Microsoft is so cool and so different and so better than anybody else, Microsoft should lead in areas other than software, so that it can lead in software forever. Culture is how you produce things, isn't it? You people working together. It's not one big brain who just tells everybody else what to do. I don't think so. We're having a conversation again over lunch that development managers, when they first get their jobs, often think that is their job, to be the one brain that controls. And the more experienced, more effective ones learn that everybody counts. Not just in a soft way, a nicey-nicey way, but in a hard bottom line, ship the code faster with less bugs. So shouldn't you be better than the average? Please.
Real quickly, so what you're advocating is largely sort of try and be more embracing, try and be that groovy company that everyone likes, or at least try and get there. I was wondering if you had anything to say about we seem to be pushing into this digital rights management thing, and that sort of seemed inherently secretive and inherently trying to prohibit somebody from doing something.
Inherently evil.
I just want to see the slide. I wasn't disagreeing with what we were saying. I'm trying to say yes, I suppose, at mere conclusion, that in order to, the perception that you're hated, that you're dishonest, that you're all the things it says on this other slide. There we go. It says on this other slide that you're greedy and dishonest is damaging, and it damages your effectiveness just as well as it does cooperation outside of the organisation. And that you're in a position you're in a cash position to hire new people, you're in a cash position to be able to experiment, a cash position to be able to blow loads of money on the Xbox. If you're in that kind of strong position, you could experiment with your own culture to take up way beyond other cultures in the world of software. So actually it becomes a competitive advantage to be different, and no longer you come up with the excuse that says, well, everybody else does it. That seems a shame, because you wouldn't say that in any other field. So for instance, there's a company in Brazil who does this, Semco. Their teams get to vote off other people out of the company, including their managers. They have so much control. and their finances are way better than the country as a whole. I mean, competitive with the larger, more successful companies here. Why not go further? You've got this opportunity. Why people could love you is that there's loads of mistakes with everybody else. I mean, that's what this quote is about. Linux, unrealistic and disorganized, according to this person. And at the moment, it's like taking picks between bunches of things you don't like, and you win sometimes, or most of the time. Why not go beyond it? It's a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. We can't probably keep any of you any longer. But maybe in conclusion, we'll go with this one again. Sorry for those who were here earlier, but it's an important one. The world used to be complicated. The world is now definitely complex. Let me describe the difference. It is that, that's the Swedish cook, by the way, Bork. He's up there because of that MSN.com problem, where the web browser Opera wasn't, and several other web browsers were unable to go to MSN.com because somebody decided to make you so totally compliant, or at least this is the story, with the different standards that the rivals' browsers could not browse. It was unintelligible. In the new Microsoft, you wouldn't do that. You check whether you were going to screw up the competition, because not checking irritated a whole bunch of people you're going to rely on. Who do you think runs all these arcane technologies? Not normal people. Developers run them. Techies run them. The people you're trying to sell your corporate stuff to and get to develop on your boxes, that's who does it. So it's disproportionately damaging. But complicated and complex. It used to be complicated. Complicare, the Latin root. That meant that the world was full of things that seemed complicated because there were lots of simple things sort of wrapped in together. But if you could divide them out, they got simple again. So Office is relatively simple if you divide it out. But things are now becoming complex, woven together. You can't just worry about the desktop. You've got to worry about everything suddenly. Complex things need different kind of solutions to complicated things. All your growth areas for the next probably 100 years or whatever that the Third Reich will be around, for 1,000 years, wasn't it? For the next 1,000 years, it will become more and more and more complex. That's where the margins are going to be. And they demand solutions that are far more than Microsoft. You can't walk out, as somebody did out of a recent standards body, in a huff, because the standards body wouldn't roll over and agree with Microsoft. You can't do that anymore. You've got to be whiter than white, better than better, even groovy. But the groovy can't just be changing the logo. And it can't just be announced as the Groovy Initiative from Steve Ballmer. It's got to be you changing your own company. And just to make it more, that's well over our time. So thank you very much. Thank you for
tremendously presumptive. Are you based out of London?
Leeds, but I was born in London.
Where do you live now?
In Leeds, Yorkshire.